The Darth Retro Podcast is brought to you by the letter T. Uh, T, the letter. Okay, so I don't get good sponsors these days. Who doesn't? Haha. The Darth Retro Podcast is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on intelligent subjects, but mostly just sports, music, and life. And now, here is your adorable host, Tom Wagner. And welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 13 of the Darth Retro Podcast. I am declaring this episode 13 to be Christmas in October edition. Why do I say that? Because as of this moment, right now, it's currently snowing outside. At least it's not that much of snow, but it's quite a bit of considerable amount, I suppose. It's enough to realize that there is snow on the ground, but to see it all cover the ground, it's not that much. It's kind of more of the slushy snow, but so yeah, it's October 4th of the year 2012, and there's snow outside my window. It's pretty odd, I will admit. But yeah, so I'll be talking a little bit about my take on snow itself, as well as some MLB playoffs to talk about, since last night was the last night of the regular season, and then I'll be talking about some NFL picks to discuss as well. So definitely looking forward to this kind of episode of this podcast. So yeah, let's get started. So as I mentioned before earlier in the podcast, that there was a little bit of a snowstorm outside of my window here in Fargo, and it kind of got to me thinking, might as well get the whole my take on the winter season out of the way, and just not have to worry about it, I suppose, until at least maybe the first major blizzard of the year, which won't be maybe until January, hopefully. At least that's my wish, I suppose. But yeah, it's currently 34 degrees outside, and I don't know what to think about it. On this past Sunday, it was 85 degrees. Okay, so it was pretty warm, I will admit. So Monday, it was about 78 degrees. Tuesday, it was a 78 degrees. And then Wednesday, it was around 55 degrees. And, so it was pretty much like an average fall day. So, and those degrees are in Fahrenheit, not Celsius. Those numbers would be considerably lower if it was in Celsius, I suppose. But anyway, so I'm honestly not surprised about it. I mean, my freshman year in 2008, we had snow in May, so I'm honestly not surprised about it. The weather here is just about unpredictable. It's unpredictable to the max. I mean, it's you just can't predict it. It's that odd to think about it at that time, So we've once had a severe thunderstorm come through on November 1st, the day after Halloween. So then we had this past spring was we had 60-degree temperatures in March, which is uh, definitely warm for that time of year. Um, so my take on the whole winter season is this: I love fall, but the sad part is once fall gets done and taken care of, it's it's pretty much winter, cold, yucky, blizzard warnings. It's I don't like it. I mean, when I was a kid, sure, I probably liked the snow, but I think once you get older, really start to you really begin to start to hate the whole season of winter itself, and and probably maybe the reason is because once you get a car, basically winter is your worst enemy, and pretty much I suppose. But um, I mean, slippery, pleasant, slippery roads, icy roads. It's yucky. It's nonsense, But um, so I guess I don't mind snow, at least to a certain amount. I mean, if it was below my waist, I wouldn't mind. But I prefer to have my snow amounts to at least knee length, I suppose. But which is never usually the case anyway. But oh well. I mean, this past winter we didn't even get our first snowstorm until like after New Year's. And yes, you heard that right from me, because we didn't have snow on Christmas, either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and basically around that time, it was pretty much blizzarding in, if that's a word or not, but there was a blizzard in Oklahoma and Kansas, while North Dakota is basically high and dry with no snow. And those people down there get snow anyway, so it's kind of funny. I mean, I do feel sorry for them, but if we can escape snow at least until January, I'd be happy with it. But then you have those people that are like, oh, we have to have snow, we have to have a light snow on Christmas, and no, it doesn't have to be a white Christmas, because when I was in when I was in Nevada, when I was a wee little lad, about around the age of 1 or so, we used to never get snow, So just because, you deserve a white Christmas doesn't mean that doesn't mean it's not gonna happen. So, it's I would care less about it, but let's see, what else could I talk about on this one? I don't know. After once winter happens, usually if you get a considerable amount of snow, sooner or later it's gonna melt, and if you live in a river, you're bound to get flooded once the snow starts melting in a considerable amount. But this past spring, we didn't have to worry about flooding, which after about 3 straight years of flood fights, I do agree that we deserved it. But I suppose I could probably talk about the first snowfall of the season and how it pertains to drivers out here. You see, the prejudice towards North Dakotans is that we're bad drivers, but I digress. I mean, every state has bad drivers. I mean, Minnesota is like, well, we have the best drivers around, you know. It's no, stop. No, once the first snow falls, you really can't be prepared for it. All you can do is just drive safely, and that's not exactly an easy task to do. But I don't know. I mean, when there's like a first snowfall in Las Vegas, or any other warm city like Miami, which actually Miami doesn't really get snow around that time of year. So usually Las Vegas people are in a chaos because they don't even know what to do when a first snowfall comes, and pretty much this other chaos, which does make sense because they don't get their first snowfall of the. They don't usually get snowfall as much as we do, so they're unprepared for it. So, what else could I talk about? I don't know. You could probably make a case that, you know, snow falling on October 4th is perhaps maybe like global warming or something has to do with that, but I don't know. I'm sure you could make a case for it, but you know, I kind of want to email Al Gore and say like, oh, there's global warming out. Well, come to Fargo, North Dakota, cause here we got snow on October 4th, and I don't know. A lot of people say it's. I think from at least 1996 to about to at least at least until August of 2011, it didn't seem that way. It seemed like a wet cycle was going on, and it seems to me that there's like a dry cycle. Excuse me. It seems to me that there's going to be a certain time period where there's going to be a dry cycle. I don't know. You could pay me enough to try to predict the weather, but you know, I don't. I mean, meteorology is not in my degree. I don't see anywhere that meteorology is part of the mass communications degree program, but so I don't know. You could say that's global warming or something like that, but I don't know. I digress. But so anyway, let's get on to the next topic since well, actually the snow will be pretty much gone by Friday anyway, because it's gonna be 57 out, so I can't really complain all that much about the snow, at least at this point in this year. So and so on to the next topic. So as you probably know, the Major League Baseball season got finished up, and basically the whole Red Sox season is pretty much all done and taken care of. So, so it ended up being pretty much a crappy season for the Red Sox. Turned out to be a pretty bad season for the Twins too, but the Red Sox finished 3 games better than the Twins, so I guess I can't really complain all that much about the Red Sox season. But if there is one thing that I can't wait for is to let the pre-Bobby Valentine firing celebrations begin, because I'm sick of Bobby Valentine. I've been sick of him since June, and I want to see him gone. Adios, comprende, But so for the MLB playoffs, they brought in a new system. They pretty much brought in a new system, and coming up tomorrow, October 5th, you have the one-game wild card playoff matches, and you have the St. Louis Cardinals at Atlanta, and that game will be played around 4:07 Central Time, of course. And then you have the Orioles play at Texas, and that game could be pretty interesting, because those two teams have played pretty good games in the regular season. So it's gonna be pretty good matchups, I suppose. But in terms of picking them, I am going to pick. I don't know about that, but I do like Atlanta's pitching quite a bit. I do like St. Louis's hitting, so it's kind of more of a toss-up game. My family has some sort of history with the Cardinals. I mean, my father was a big Mark McGwire fan, and he bought a Cardinals hat, oddly enough, and then he bought into the whole Mark McGwire hype. And just remember, it was 1998 when that was when he bought those things. So, I can't blame him for that. But anyway, back to the subject. I'm gonna pick. I'll take St. Louis against Atlanta, and I'm going to take the Texas Rangers over the Orioles. And for the other wildcard matchup, I am in the American League. I am going to take for Detroit against Oakland. I don't know about that. The Oakland Athletics had a pretty good season by their standards. I didn't think that the Athletics would have gotten to the postseason. I thought it would have been a lot more of a tougher season for the Athletics, but they pretty much surprised me and anyone else. So this series is a 5-game series, and the first 2 games are at Detroit, and Detroit has been pretty good, I think, at home. So I don't know. Taking a look at their home record, they were 50-31 at home and 38-43 on the road. So, and that's for the Tigers. So I'm thinking about taking Detroit in that in that American League Division series. And of course, you have Texas or Baltimore play against the Yankees, and it seems a better matchup for the Rangers to beat the Yankees. So I'm thinking Rangers will beat the Yankees, because the Rangers have had the Yankees number for the past few seasons, I suppose. So I'm going to take the Rangers over the Yankees. Then you have the Giants against the Reds in that National League Division Series. And I'm going to take the Giants because the Giants have better pitching, and I do like the Giants hitting. So in terms of home and road records, it's kind of more closely knit than a lot of people think. The Giants were 48-33 at home, and pretty good road numbers as well. The Giants were 46-35 on the road, and the Giants finished their last 10 games. They won 5 of their last 10 games. Excuse me, but. So I am thinking about the Giants against the over the Reds, and then you have the Atlanta or St. Louis against Washington, and I think Steven Strasburg is pretty much not going to be pitching for the postseason, so it's kind of an interesting matchup. I mean, the Nationals did pretty good. Well, taking a look at their numbers, they were 4th in the National League in average, which was 261, which is pretty good, I suppose. They were 2nd in the American National League in home runs with 194. So, I'm gonna take the Nationals in that matchup. Excuse me. Pardon me about that. Let's see. So in the ALCS, you have Detroit against Texas, and I'm thinking about the Tigers in that matchup. So I'm gonna take the Tigers, and for the NLCS, you have the Giants against the Senators, or Nationals, excuse me. And I'm going to take the Giants, so it's going to be, and if my memory serves me right, I have a Giants and Tigers World Series, and it's going to be a pretty interesting series. I think the World Series starts on October 24th and ends, if necessary, on November 1st. And one of those teams is a northern city, in which in this case it's Detroit. And I am going to pick the Tigers to win the World Series, which could be a very interesting matchup, or a very interesting case. I don't know. I think Detroit will have better pitching. I think the Giants will have a tough time trying to get Miguel Cabrera out, and I think the Tigers will be your 2012 World Series champions. Of course, that's my prediction. Of course, I could be absolutely dead wrong about that. So Detroit Tigers, do not let me down. Okay. So in terms of that, I am pretty much done with that topic. So Detroit Tigers, your 2012 World Series champions. The first time that they've won the World Series since 1984. So let's continue on to the next topic. So it's going to be the fifth week in the National Football League, and here I am going to make my picks for this week. This week is an open date for Dallas, Detroit, Oakland, and Tampa Bay. And so let's begin with tonight's game, which could be a very good game for the National Football League Network, or NFL Network, of course. You have the Cardinals going to St. Louis to take on the Rams. You have the Cardinals being being the Cinderella team, and I do like the Cardinals in that matchup. Kevin Kolb has been pretty good, to say the least, I suppose. They did win a nail biter against the Dolphins at home last week, but I think the Cardinals on the road will win that game, unless they pretty much lay an egg, I suppose. But I'm going to take the Cardinals in that matchup. And Green Bay at Indianapolis. That game's going to be on Fox. It's going to be an early game. And that game is going to be... trying to see if that one is going to be in my market, which is the Fargo, North Dakota market, and it looks like that game will be on my market, and luckily enough, that game's not going to be with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. But anyway, back to my picks. I'm going to take Green Bay over this one. I think our defense has a better chance to make Andrew Luck's day pretty miserable. Charles Woodson has made a career out of destroying rookie quarterbacks. So I'm going to take Green Bay in that matchup. Baltimore at Kansas City. That game's on CBS. And I'm going to take the Ravens on the road against the Chiefs. I do like Joe Flacco. The matchup against Joe Flacco and the Chiefs' defense. So the Chiefs haven't been that much of a dark horse team so far this season, which is kind of more of an embarrassing season to be a Chiefs fan. So I'm going to take the Ravens in that matchup. Of course, the Ravens' defense will always be there to taunt Matt Castle. Miami at Cincinnati. Ooh, this is looking to be a very, very tantalizing matchup. The Dolphins almost beat the Cardinals at home in overtime. But to think about it, I think Brian Tannehill will need more than his hot wife to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. I like the Bengals offense in the matchup. I think the Bengals will find a way to beat the Dolphins at home. And the Eagles will be traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers in the Pennsylvania matchup. Or the Steagles matchup. Because once upon a time ago, the Eagles and the Steelers were once conjoined as a team, and
they were known as the Steagles. So there you go for that history lesson. I'm going to take... I am going to take Pittsburgh. I like basically the whole Pittsburgh team as well. Could be a pretty close game. The Eagles have been a little bit of a surprising team so far this season, but the Steelers will find a way to win this game after being disappointed and upset against the Raiders at their home. So I'm going to take the Steelers in that matchup. One of the more interesting matchups is Atlanta is going into Washington to take on the Redskins. And it's a very interesting matchup to think about. The Redskins beat the Buccaneers last week on a late game field goal, and then the Falcons who almost got their first loss against Carolina. So I am going to take the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan has played very good so far this season, and the Redskins defense has been banged up. So I am going to take the Falcons to beat the Redskins at home. Washington's home, of course. Cleveland going into the Meadowlands Stadium against the Giants, and unless I'm gonna take the Giants. When I've picked the Giants in week 1 to beat the Cowboys, the Giants have let me down. When I picked the Giants to beat the Eagles last week, they let me down as well. So I'm thinking maybe third time's a charm. So I think third time that I pick the Giants, they will win against the Browns, unless the Giants lay a pretty huge egg at their home stadium, which doesn't seem that likely. So Seattle at Carolina. The Seahawks. I'm trying to think who played the Seahawks last week. I think it was the Rams, and the Seahawks. I don't know. The Seahawks have been a decent team, I suppose. I picked the Seahawks to beat the Rams last week, so I'm gonna go against the Seahawks and pick the Panthers to beat the Seahawks at home. So Chicago at Jacksonville, and this is pretty much a no-brainer. I'm gonna take Chicago in this matchup. Listen, the Bears defense will be there to pretty much taunt Blaine Gabbert, and I don't see the Jaguars to beat Chicago. So I'm gonna take the Bears in that matchup. Denver at New England, which is a late game on CBS. It's pretty much a renewed Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady matchup, and could be interesting. The Patriots haven't let me down so far almost this season. They let me down against the Cardinals. They let me down against the Ravens, excuse me.
So I am going to pick Denver to beat the Patriots at home. I'm going to pick that to be my upset special. I don't know. I just think the Denver will have their breakout game against a really, really, really good Patriots team. So, of course, Denver could let me down, I suppose, but I don't see it happening. One of the more obvious matchups this week is the Buffalo Bills, going to San Francisco at Candlestick Park to take on the 49ers. And unless Alex Smith has a 5-interception game, Frank Gore gets 20 yards rushing on 10 attempts, and Jim Harbaugh breaks 12 billion blood vessels and gets tossed out of the game, the 49ers will lose this game. So I am going to pick the 49ers to beat the Bills at home. Tennessee at Minnesota. I do like the Vikings in that matchup. Tennessee's defense hasn't looked that great so far this season. The Titans will struggle, definitely, to put up points. And probably in the Sunday night primetime game, you have the Chargers at New Orleans. I don't know. New Orleans has been a pretty disappointing team so far this season, and the Chargers have looked pretty good. And well, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to take the Chargers in this matchup, and I can't blame Arnold to pick them. So I am going to pick. I think for the Saints to go 0-5 with so much urgency to get a win. I'm going to pick the Chargers. I'm going to pick the Chargers to beat the Saints at home. And I just don't think the Saints defense will be up to the challenge against Phil Rivers and the Chargers. So that might bite me in the ass after that game, but I just don't see the Saints getting their first win against the Chargers. The Monday night game, you have the Houston Texans going into New York to take on the Jets. And I'm going to take... this is going to be a tough one to figure out. I'm not really sure who to pick in this one. Oh yeah, I'm going to take the Texans because the Jets, and I quote, the Jets suck. Unless Tebow has, which I think Tim Tebow will probably get quite a few more snaps in this game than the previous few games. Unless Tim Tebow throws for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, and the Texans defense laxes a lot, I just don't see the Jets winning this game. I just don't. I will pick the Texans to win this game. So, in terms of NFL picks, I am pretty much done for this. I am 36-26-1 so far this season, which is pretty good by
my account, I suppose. So we'll have to see what happens tonight against the Cardinals and the Rams. And I will probably have another podcast coming up on Tuesday to get a little bit of a recap of what happened in the week that was in the NFL. So I am pretty much done with this episode 13. There's still snow outside, which sucks, I suppose. But so all I can say about it is, if you're going to go out and drive to somewhere, please be careful about those around you, and just drive safely. So I will see you all probably next week. So adios.